This is Chris Colombo, and this is Taking Action. I'm very excited. It's the kickoff this week of professional football. We have a great story about Sammy Davis, a great man, great entertainer. My guest is the Raging Warrior, Joe Gambino, MMA fighter and trainer. Okay, we got a great guest, MMA fighter, Joe Gambino, legend, coined the phrase, it's more than a sport, it's an obsession. They still write about his quote till today. We're going to talk about his career, his life, strategies. Also, we're going to talk about the up-and-coming NFL season, which I'm really excited to share my strategies, my point of view, and to educate you how to be a smarter gambler. I want to make you a wise guy gambler. I have a great story about Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis became a very, very, almost, pardon the pun, part of the family. Sinatra was very close with my father when Sammy decided to marry Mae Britt, who was white. As you know, Sammy was an Afro-American Jewish person. So that in those days was a couple of strikes against you, which my father did not like any prejudice whatsoever. He was actually politically correct in the 60s and 70s, but not to a fault. So Sinatra was very fond of Sammy, which for good reason. And his core, his nucleus was called the Rat Pack. I don't like that word rat whatsoever, but that was his core. That's what they were coined. It was Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford. Out of that relationship, Peter Lawford was married to a Kennedy. And that's how Sinatra and the Kennedys came to be. And Sinatra had almost a romance with John F. Kennedy, and I don't mean in a sexual way. And if they did, so be it. But not the point. It's not true. But he was enthralled with John F. Kennedy, as a whole nation was. And Joe Kennedy, for lack of a better term, was a man of many nefarious talents. And I was a big fan of John F. Kennedy myself. He was a war hero. And what had happened was when Sammy Davis announced he was marrying Mae Britt, who was very good looking, I believe she was Swedish or Swiss, I think Swedish, was a sex symbol and a very good actress. And she fell in love with Sammy. And Joe Kennedy stepped in and said he would stop the relationship between John and Frank Sinatra if Frank Sinatra both agreed to be best man at his wedding. The rippling effects caused Sammy to be placed back on the Green Book. Those that you are not familiar with the Green Book, it's not that long ago, and it was a really unfair thing. Black entertainers, sports figures, and everything couldn't eat in certain places down south and out west, so they had a Green Book where they could go, so you could come and entertain, and in that Green Book, they suggest you, and it was not the standard they should be treated with. And it was a very, very unfair practice. And I sincerely tell you, it is not good for any person to be treated that way, to be hailed as a superstar in your own rights and not be allowed to eat with people or sleep or stay in the same, or use the same bathroom. It was one thing that Joe Colombo with the Italian American Civil Rights League. At this point, the Italian American Civil Rights League wasn't as preeminent, but he did found aid Italians of American descent, not only to overcome the plights and the prejudices of Italians, to join with other groups. And that came to his demise with the assassination plot. But we'll go into that another time, and that's a story for another day. So that was the first meeting of Joe Colombo and Sammy Davis. When he got Green Booked, what they did is they only let Sammy allowed in the casino, not in the hotel in Vegas, some of them, and not in the restaurants. So naturally, he was gambling up a storm just to be able to have access to his friends, the Rat Pack. And where would he go after the things? Everything back to a substandard hotel and a place. And Sammy didn't mind. He was a guy for the people. He would talk with people. He loved them. He was a vaudevillian. Jojo Dancer was his nickname. He played that part. He played it well. So my father used his influence to crush the debts that Sammy was put into and make them reasonable, because he ended up having to entertain for free, because all he could do was stay at, and he wasn't even allowed to eat in the lounges. So in order to be in the casinos where he entertained, he had to be gambling. And he was also developing a gambling problem from that. So my father stepped in and used his influence to make sure that Sammy or no other person was green booked in these casinos, and it was a successful endeavor. Whatever tactics he used, they were not violent, but they were effective. To date, Sammy had become a great ally, and there's more stories about Sammy later on in Prejudices that I will tell you. Sammy died before his mom. She still wrote me. When my father was injured and semi-comatose, after the shooting, Sammy came to the hospital every day for 3 months and would visit my father and come to this home every time he was in town. And his mother wrote us regularly. I forget what year she died, but what a very, very nice woman. We never forgot what a pioneer he was for the Black people and for the Italian American Civil Rights League and for the Jewish community. And he never forgot his true friendship with us. I hail Sammy. I know he's in a good place and he's looking down. And that is my story for today. Stay tuned. We got a great guest, and we got a lot of gambling information to help you with for this exciting, up-and-coming NFL season.
This is what I am. This is what I do. This is all I know. This is why. Warrior, never been afraid of no one, never run, never leave the cage until my job's done. I'm a warrior, and I'm destroying what I'm touching. Come for blood and give up nothing as long as my heart's pumping. I'm a warrior, and see the champion is here. My brain stays clear, and I'm trained to control fear. I'm a warrior, come to the kennel, do your sentence. I'm a menace, never start something that I can't finish. I'm a warrior, another night, another fight, another grown man about to be staring up at the lights. Cause some act bad and some run their mouth. The first thing I get a hold of coming off or coming out. My fist do a fist do, step and get a fistful. You were born for this, I was bred for this like a pit bull. Reason for being is simply one goal. They just lock you in here with a machine with no soul. Gambino hitting harder than the great Bambino. Never talk much but never said nothing I didn't mean. No, with that being said, I'm a champion. You like the fire in me when you say it can't be done. And that's anybody testing me, I'll train to the death of me. A man taking breath like me will never get the best of me. Cause I'm a winner, fracture a contender. Factually gone with ya, naturally born killer. I turn into an animal, there's nothing nice about it. A warrior would go to hell and back without thinking twice about it. Soon as that bell rings, you knew I wasn't bluffing. When I slam you down and grind you into nothing. I'm a warrior, never been afraid of no one. Never run, never leave the cage until my job's done. I'm a warrior, and I'm destroying what I'm touching. Come for blood and give up nothing as long as my heart's pumping. I'm a warrior, and see the champion is here. My brain stays clear, I'm trained to control fear. I'm a warrior, come to the kennel, do your sentence. I'm a menace, never start something that I can't finish. I'm a warrior, and the war's what I'm about. It's what I inhale in and what I exhale out. Want to go down in history if you speak it statistically. I'll live for the challenge and I would die for the victory. Never doubt a man if you know nothing about him. Got a one-track mind and see the trains coming down him. Seeing is believing, come see him, the title taker. A modern day Achilles, Coliseum gladiator. A fire in my heart that'll burn up and consume you. My only thought when I step to you is to ruin you. Chew him up and going through him, put a stop to him. Mentally, readily, physically, I'll be a rock to him. Adrenaline junkie, see I thrive off the danger. Sharp it to a fine point to cut you like a razor. Call me a surgeon, call me a dangerous man. Call me what you want, but always call me what I am. I'm a warrior, never been afraid of no one. Never run, never leave the cage until my job's done. I'm a warrior, and I'm destroying what I'm touching. Come for blood and give up nothing as long as my heart's pumping. I'm a warrior.
I don't know what I could say after watching that video. You saw it. My opinion and a lot of people's opinion within the MMA forum and genre consider Joe Gambino the raging warrior. Hell of a nice guy outside of the ring, but in the ring, I don't think there's nobody this man couldn't tear apart. He coined the expression, it's not a sport, it's an obsession. He works with children, he coaches, he was all state in wrestling. He grew up with a name and a relation like I did, so he knows what it's like to have that stigma on you, good and bad. I'm very proud to have him on the show. Joe, welcome to Taking Action. How are you, pal?
Hey, Chris, thanks a lot. Doing well.
All right. How's the kids?
They're getting big.
Are you still coaching them in wrestling?
Yeah, yep. My little guy's wrestling. He's 10 now. So we're doing great in that. We are into football mode right now. So I'm coaching the football team. He's playing right now. My daughter's cheerleading, and it's busy between the both of them. She's 9, he's 10. We've got some type of sport almost every day, depending on the season. So we're constantly on the go.
Joe, as an MMA fighter, you were one of the greatest prospects that came in your weight class. People have seen the video; they know the intensity you fight with. How big is training in MMA? I know you had an advance because you're also a football player. You did mixed martial arts, and the wrestling was one of your keys. Am I correct?
Yeah, wrestling is what got me involved with it. I mean, growing up, I seen lots of fighters. For example, Matt Hughes was a great wrestler. Seen how far he took it in, the UFC and in the MMA, mixed martial arts. And I was always just super aggressive with my wrestling. I always watched, the UFC growing up. And it was just something I was like, you know what? If those guys are doing it with their wrestling background, I've got the wrestling background. I truly enjoy wrestling. Like, what's the next step once you're out of high school? Besides going to college, what's that next step? Like, what else is there as far as competing? So that was the route that I chose. I said, I want to fight in the UFC. I think it's something I could do. And instead of going to college after I graduated, which, I had a few scholars to go, I told, the family, I said, hey, I don't want to go. I want to start training for this.
That must have been shocking, right?
Yeah, they thought I was a little nuts, obviously. I mean, but the whole family watched the UFC. We knew a lot of the fighters, knew what was going on, watched it on a regular basis. So it didn't seem so far-fetched to them because I've always mentioned it since like 10th grade, 9th, 10th grade. Hey, I might want to do that one day. But once senior year came, I had to make that decision, and that's what I decided to do, so chase that dream.
I'm a pretty good handicapper, and when I saw your highlight film, one of the things I was most amazed at is how you would evaluate your opponent. I never forget the one you walk out, you just give the guy a kick and drop him in the first few seconds. How did you know that there was that weakness? You have the eye of the tiger, and you could move, and you're a sweetheart outside of the cage. I got to tell you that. Once you get in fight mode, there is not a more competitive warrior and raging warrior. I mean, I don't want to say vicious, but how do you transform? How do you do that?
Well, obviously, like you said, training is key, just like with any sport, right? So when you're doing it on a regular basis, you're looking for those openings, you're looking for those opportunities. And when we train in mixed martial arts at the gym, I mean, you're going live with training partners. So you can't be as good as you can during the fight unless you're putting in that 80% effort in sparring. You know what I mean? We're not going 100%. We're not looking to kill each other, right? But when we're sparring, we're going 80%. So it's as close to live as you can get without causing, significant damage. And obviously in the beginning, I take a few shots here and there. And, like they said, sometimes you got to learn the hard way. So I'd get rocked and be like, all right, after that round, me and the guy would talk about me, my partner, hey, I saw this, I did that, you did this. And then it's just one of those things, repetition, you know what I mean? And of course, I was surrounded by, some of the best in the world up at TriStar Gym in Montreal, Canada, training under, Faraz Zahabi out of TriStar Gym. So that was huge. And that was like a huge dream and goal of mine once I knew that I had the opportunity to possibly go there. I mean, of course, everyone knows Georges St-Pierre, welterweight champion of the world for a long time. That's where he's from, Montreal. That's where he trains. And there's just a whole list of other, great fighters as well that are there. And as my amateur career was doing very well and I was undefeated and I got the chance to go pro, my first manager, he lives up in Montreal and he's got a place down here in New York. And we met, he's seen me training at one of the local gyms here. And he's like, hey, I could possibly get you up there training with these guys. I know them personally, and I've seen you fight. You're ready to go pro already. And I was like, well, I've only had, 4 amateur fights. He's like, no, you're ready. He's like, I'd love to take you up there if you were willing to. And one thing led to another, So training's huge, like we were going over, but it's also who you're surrounded by, So steel sharpens steel. And if you want to get to that next level, you got to be practicing with those type of competitors. Otherwise,
practice makes permanent.
Exactly. You can't be the best guy in the room. Otherwise, you're not going to get there.
Where did the rage come from, Joe? You could see it. I mean, to know you in person, you're probably one of the most lovable, respectable, nice people you can met. But when you go into that, where does that rage come from?
I mean, you got to be able to flip that switch. And honestly, the Raging Warrior came through high school. When I was on the football field, my varsity coach, Mike Melville, he was like, you're not the biggest guy, right? And I'm walking around maybe 160 at the time, if I'm lucky. That's high school. And I'm playing outside linebacker. And when those big boys come around the turn, I'm just meeting them with everything I got. And he would say, he's like, you've got this, like, he goes, I don't know how to explain it, this rage inside you. Like when it's game time, you're going full bore. I
Focused,
wish,
determined.
some of the other guys on the team would have that, because he used me as an example. Like, look, he's not the biggest guy, but when you're getting hit by him. So he kind of threw that rage, that I have this rage that I play with, and he tried to instill it in some of my teammates too, and he used it as an example. But then on the wrestling mat, that's where my wrestling coach was like, Joey's a warrior. He'll go till the end. Doesn't matter if he's down by a couple points or not. He's going hard, pushing the pace in your face, and he wears his guys down to where even if I was down by a few points, I'll get that pin in the third period, and that's it. It's over. So sooner or later, between me and my buddies and kicking those things around, the Raging Warrior came about.
You definitely have star quality in that area and others, Joe. My son Joey's 20. He's been a big fan of yours since we're hanging out, about 5-6 years now?
Yep.
Something
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, something about that. And the most interesting thing was when my son saw your clip and you were going to train him in wrestling. When people talk about MMA fighters, my son shows that clip. I show it too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an intensity that you bring, and if people know you, and the love is just as intense as the thing. I'd like to tell a story I think is really funny, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. You were training for a professional bout, right? When you met your wife?
When I met my wife, actually, she was fighting the next day. I was there with a friend of mine who was fighting on that same card. So I was actually home from Canada, and I'm there to help corner him. So it was actually a night that I had off.
Tell the story. It's the greatest story ever told. So your wife, you're handsome, you're strong, you're known in that area. She's starting out when there's no league for women, which takes a lot of heart.
Right.
Tell the story
right.
what you told me, Joe. I don't tell it as well as you.
Everyone loves the story. My wife loves the story. So yeah, I'm there for my buddy Anthony. He's fighting the next night. We're in Pennsylvania, which is where she's originally from. And I tell my trainer Ron, I'm like, hey, Ron, Anthony, you get a good night's sleep. I'm going down to the jacuzzi. I'm going down to relax in the pool. It's finally, I'm at an event where I'm not fighting. Spotlight's not on me. I'm going to go relax. So like, all right, go ahead. No problem. So I go down. Nobody's in this pool. No one's in the jacuzzi. The whole place is empty. I jump in the jacuzzi. I'm sitting back. I'm relaxing, just going over a few things. I just had a fight a few weeks prior. And next thing you know, I see, this woman come walking in, and she's slowly making her way over. Now, the hair's all done in cornrows, right? Because that's how the women usually fight. They get their hair done so it's nice and tight. Can't pull on nothing. Nothing gets stuck. And she comes walking over, and I see her. She makes eye contact. She says, excuse me, mind if I join you? And now it's a huge jacuzzi, and there's just nobody. I said, yeah, it's a free country. Come ahead. So she gets in, and I said, so you're fighting tomorrow, huh? She goes, yeah, what gave it away? I said, well, obviously the cornrows, whatnot. And she goes,
she's in excellent shape.
Yes. Well, obviously that caught my attention. So I said,
I knew it did.
I said, yeah, I see that. She goes, I think I know who you are. That's that cage tattoo, right? Because, the water is about just so high, but she can see the top of the cage on my rib, which, a lot of people.
That's what I like. The women notice above the waist. Go ahead.
So she goes, I've seen you fight before at the Zembo. She goes, you're Joey Gambino. I was like, kind of shocked. I was like, yeah. So we just get to talking, and, I tell her, because probably about a half an hour goes by, and then they're going to close the place down. It was like 9:00 at night. I said, listen, I'll be keeping an eye out for you tomorrow. I said, I don't know if you're going to be fighting before or after my buddy, but either way, I'm going to keep an eye out for you. She was, all right, great. She's like, I'm in this girl's hometown. I'm, currently undefeated, but I don't really have anyone here. She's like, some of my family couldn't make it. She's like, I'm going to be, going out there, giving my best. And she's like, hopefully I get another win. I said, yeah, just stay focused. Don't stress yourself. I said, doesn't matter. It's her hometown. I said, I've been in those predicaments too. Once the cage locks and the bell rings, this is what you train for. So she says, all right. So the next day comes by, and she ends up coming up to fight. And she's doing well in the first round. And then the second round, she ends up getting an arm bar and submits her opponent. So she gets up, she gets excited. And as she's walking out, I put my hand down. I told her, good job. And she just got this big smile, reached down, grabbed my hand, gave her a high five. She made it back to the back of the stage. And then later that night, as we're heading home from PA, I get a friend request on Facebook. And then we started talking from there. And to this day, I tell her, if you didn't win that fight, we would have never been. Because
So if she'd have lost that fight, you weren't dating it.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
That was it.
I was undefeated at the time. I was rocking and rolling. And if I'm going to have a partner, we need to be rocking and rolling together.
She needed to be undefeated.
Have that same drive.
I think
yeah, so it worked out. It was meant to be.
When we got close, Joe got Lyme disease almost, and I rushed up there with this vinegar. It made him throw up, but I know it saved his life.
I think it might have too, yeah.
So that's the first time I met the missus, and she's in fantastic shape, probably the strongest quadriceps I've ever seen on a woman, and proportioned, but nice like Joey is. So we're talking, and he's coming in and out of it. He's half unconscious. They got IVs in him. I'm nervous as hell because he's a powerful guy. I make him drink this vinegar. They're giving him dairy products mixed. They're giving him the wrong antibiotic. Makes him throw up. If he didn't, that poison would have shut his kidneys down. Today, I actually made him purge to help him. So long story short, I'm talking to his wife, and his brother's got to be this big, all muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
He comes in, and at that day, that was actually a good thing because he wasn't feeling good, and that Lyme disease could kill you. They gave me 6 months to live since 98. I know what he's going through. So his brother comes in and they just feature them, Centerfold, MMA magazine, whichever the most popular is, with his quote that it's not just a sport, it's an obsession. And they pay tribute to him. So that cheered him up a little bit. And I think what cheered him up the most was I'm talking to a guy comes in and pretends to be a doctor, remember? And I get mad, and your wife wants to actually get really mad. And I said, all right, take it easy. She says, me and Joey fight a lot. I have kids now. I can't afford felonies. I says, you really shouldn't fight with your husband. You got to take that down. No, we don't fight with each other. We fight back to back against the town, she said.
Yeah, that's another story local back in the day. But yeah, there's a
scratch. I firmly believe in fighting for your family and sticking up for your wife and your children. You and your wife back to back is not losing.
Nope, undefeated for a long time.
You've never started or engaged a fight in your life. You're a gentleman, except for training and stuff like that. Which growing up,
like I said,
people do come after you.
Yeah, you got to have that switch. You got to have that switch. I mean, honestly, I think of Stallone Over the Top. When he's in the arm wrestling, he says when he turns that hat around, it's like a switch. And
What's
growing
your
up
switch,
being a big Stallone fan, I've watched that, and it's just one of those things. It's stuck with you. You turn the
What's
switch
your switch? How do you know when you're going to go?
What's that?
Warning signs to your switch.
Well, if I'm about to compete, I can turn the switch on. But if we're out and about, sometimes the wrong button gets pushed, and then you got to flip that switch.
Well, you protect your kids, you protect your wife, you protect your family.
Absolutely,
that's what you're supposed to do.
But I haven't had to worry about that in a long time. So
yeah, as you get older, there's less of that. But people get dumber as days go on.
Yes, it's true. Actually, when we first met, it was through a mutual friend, and he said to me, he goes, "Hey, I'm playing at a friend's house, Chris Colombo." He goes, you know Colombo, like the family? I said, yeah, I know all the story, all the history. I've done some research, and he goes, well, there's no issues, right? Like, would you be able to come and play? Because I wanted to ask him if you can come, but I didn't want to say your name because I didn't know if there was. I said, no, there's no problem at all. It's actually a closer family than what you think. I said, so I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue at all. And so that's how we first were introduced there at the game.
A lot of people ask, in the neighborhoods, our name was an advantage. In suburbs, people felt intimidated, and the town bullies wanted to push up on us. I know you've had that too.
Yeah, and always once someone hears the name, oh, Gambino, is there a relation? That's growing up my whole life. It was always, last name.
There is a relation, and sometimes it works for you, sometimes against you.
Right.
But if they wanted to fight, I think they picked the wrong Gambino.
Yeah.
But I know
Grandma Gambino always told me.
Gentlemen.
Yep, Grandma Gambino always told me. She said, you don't say nothing. You just say no comment. I said, okay, Grandma Gambino, that's what I'll say.
I'm very proud to be friends with the amount of years our families have been friends. And I've always found them all gentlemen. Sometimes I have a raging temper like you're the raging warrior because of the line, but we've always managed to have a good time and be gentlemen.
Yeah, but
I'd just like to say personally, thank you for the work you do with children.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I enjoy it. So
yeah. Joe, you work with the kids. You're a great coach, a great athlete, a great father, very good friend. I thank you for having you here. I hope to have you here for your opinion and your son's opinion in the future. We could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give everybody
He's gonna.
my thoughts. Is there anything you
Yep.
want to say? Say hello to the kids?
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna be biased to the Rams. The Rams is his team. Just a heads
Okay.
up.
So it's safe to say the Gambino family is touting the Rams to go all the way.
Yes,
All
yes.
right.
We cheer for the Rams.
I think that's going to be our quote.
Yeah. All
For the
right,
show.
we'll go with it.
All right, everybody out there, watch out for the Rams. They're not greater athletes or competitors in the world than the Gambino family, and they train hard, they think well, and they process well, and they're good people. So let's watch out for the Rams this year. I'm going to pay special attention to them. Thank you, Joe. Regards to your wife and the children and your family. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chris.
And go Rams for the Gambinos. Welcome back to Taking Action. I'm Chris Colombo. Don't forget to hit subscribe so we can send you emails and let you know what's coming up. Also, it helps us with your comments. I do listen. I do pay attention to them. I do read them, and I love constructive criticism. Even a little further makes it interesting. Okay, what I'm most excited about is Thursday night kicks off NFL football. I am passionate about it, but I am stringent and meticulous in the way I diagnose it. The variables I give you are very, very important because when the NFL sets the line, they don't consider some of these things. There is 45 million people estimated going to bet $12 billion this year. Hopefully, we could be on the plus side of that. We have the Kansas City Chiefs at home playing the Detroit Lions. I don't need to tell you how good Mahomes is. You watch him, you see him. He's a competitor. I don't need to tell you that the Detroit Lions have Goff. We've seen him play for other teams. In the area of quarterback, there is no finer warrior than Mahomes. So what's most important is the first 3 weeks of sports betting in the NFL is a crapshoot. The lines are not accurate. The teams have not performed yet. The data is based on last year and the hype of who's whatever. Okay. Kansas City, when you learn, is 5.5 points in FanDuel, 6.5 in Vegas. So that's telling me that the smart money, the wise guy action, or the volume is on, early money is on Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. What scares me is the line is 5.5 and holding there and open there. Whenever an odds maker doesn't know what to make the line on a big game, it's always 5.5, because very few games end on 5 or 6. 5.5 is what we call a deadline. Those games I stay away from. Detroit is on the road. I don't think they're playing with a quarterback that has plays well under pressure or in the big games, but he is playing a team that is the world champion. So every team that plays them looks like they're beating the Super Bowl champion of last year. So how I would analyze this game is very simple. It's not what I would bet. It's what I would enjoy. If I was going to sit and bet a few dollars, win or lose, not much, I would always bet and enjoy Mahomes. With injuries or whatever, he's a warrior, and I think he just gets up for every game like it is the Super Bowl. Next game we have is Atlanta against the Panthers. Atlanta's at home. They're 3.5. That means they're actually a half because you laid 3 for being home field advantage. You have 2 quarterbacks. One's the first time they're playing. The other one's a rookie. Both very good quarterbacks. One an exceptional quarterback. Not a game I would put my money on, but an enjoyable game to watch as it develops. Because remember, the games we are watching and the things we see will be components to what we'll bet later on. Cleveland's playing the Bengals. Cleveland is at home. Bengals are 2.5 favorite. I lean towards Cleveland all day long on this game. I know Burrows has an injured hamstring. The quarterback for the Browns is not quite tested. He's back in the season for 5 games last year. Very good quarterback, but we haven't seen much from him. Burrows performs with a little injury or not, he's a warrior. Not the best loved quarterback in football, but I love his abilities. I watched him through college, and don't judge a book by its cover. Minnesota is -6 against Tampa Bay. I always like Minnesota. I like Tampa Bay, but they're not playing with Tom Brady this year. There's some losses in their defense. I would skip over that one, but I think it'll be a good game. And once again, let's pay attention because teams get better as seasons go on. Some teams get worse, others peak. Remember, the team that comes to play, this is professional football, they can do it. There is nobody out there that doesn't have capabilities. Okay, we have Tennessee Titans are being hosted by the New Orleans Saints. Those are two teams we're going to be keying on later on in the season. Trust me when I tell you. I would watch the game. I'd enjoy it. It's not where I would put my money. Okay, we got the Washington Commanders at home. They are 7 points over the Arizona Cardinals. I like the Arizona team, but they don't have a quarterback. So that can work for you or against you. I don't know how you evaluate that game. So that's not a game I'd handicap, and I don't count any team out that is an underdog. Baltimore is -10 at home versus the Houston Texans. The line tells you who should win that game. Do I know they're going to win by 10? I can't tell you that. It's the beginning of the season. They may pull their starters out if they're up a lot. They may allow the other team to score. You never know with a game like that. Usually, if I'm not going to take the 10 points, I stay away from the game. That game, I'm not going to take the 10 points because there could be a blowout, or you never know. It depends on what's in the coach's head. If he's using it for a tune-up game, which is to spike his offense and spike his defense, and he wants to play full bore, or the other team could be insulted, their 10-point underdog, and as long as they don't lose by 10 points, they consider it a win, especially now that gambling is illegal. They know the world is paying attention to the line as well as the game. And if you bet on a team and they don't win by as much as you want them to, you're not as big as a fan. Or if you bet on a team and they don't lose by as little as you expect them to do, that is another variable that's going to affect sports. Because not only are players going to feel their obligation to play for their fans is not only just to win by the amount, or if they are now playing to lose by the amount. Out of that 45 million people that are wagering on football, they are going to be buying jerseys. They're going to be going to the games. They're going to be watching on TV. So players now have the pressure to either not lose by the amount of points or have to win by the amount of points to still be held in regard by the fan. That is one facet that has to be evaluated in betting on a team. So the players of these teams know their fan base that they are expected to either lose by less than when they're an underdog or win by more when they are a favorite. This is the interesting component and also the education I'm going to bring you to sports gambling. Bears are -1 at home against the Packers. The Bears and the Packers always play each other tough, very tough. That's a division game. That is a rivalry that's gone back to Vince Lombardi and George Halas, two of the greatest coaches. Some other great coaches, Mike Holmgren, Mike Ditka, so on and so forth. That rivalry is gone for forever. They're basically saying that the Bears are actually, if they're laying one, they lay 3 at home, or a 2-point underdog, but they're laying one, you're getting one. So that's a pick'em game to me because it usually doesn't ever land on a push. Very rare that you'll see at the end of the year, you'll see a push. So I think that's an enjoyable game to watch. I'm interested to see how Green Bay does without Aaron Rodgers. I always like the Bears. Their defense usually always shows up, and they're a highly competitive team, and they are monsters in the midway. And that's the two of the most physical teams in football. I'm curious later on in the season how this develops will be important when we are evaluating for other teams. Denver at home, -3.5 at the Raiders. Denver is always tough at home, but people don't realize is the height of the stadium. and John Elway and other great quarterbacks have played for him had great success because other teams were tired because they weren't used to the thin air there. The best thing they got going for them is the air is very, very, very thin in Colorado. That is one thing. That's a game I'm also going to stay away from. That 3 and a hook, it could be very pertinent. That half a point could kill you and make you here. Patriots at home, +4 against the Eagles. I always like home team underdog. The Eagles are a tremendously strong team. I never count Belichick out. That's one. I'm a Belichick fan. I think his coaching, the way he does things, he's probably the smartest coach in professional football today. And if there's an edge, he'll get it. He doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. Neither do I. I like the Eagles very, very much, but I like home team underdog. They could get blown out. The Eagles are a powerhouse, but very rarely, unless I look towards that Belichick knows it doesn't take 18 games to win a Super Bowl. And I look towards who they're playing next week, which are division games. He comes to play them harder. He's smart. He adjusts in the games he loses. He doesn't show the coaches the following weeks what he's up to because they film him. He's a wizard, so am I. And one wizard never goes against another wizard. I'm not saying to bet with him, but I definitely don't bet against him unless I think he's not taking the game serious as he should and using it towards next week. Chargers at home, -3 against the Dolphins. It'll be interesting what they see. I like the Chargers in that game. I've always been a big Charger fan. I like their offense. I like their defense. I like their receivers. I like everything about them. I'm going with the Chargers. Giants +3.5 at home against the Cowboys. Okay, like I said, the first 3 weeks of the season, the line isn't tightened. It's a crapshoot, and it's in the favor of the better because the lines aren't tight. I think the Giants had some success last year. Cowboys are always a very good organization. They come to play, but home team underdog against the Cowboys, big rivalry. I'm not telling you to bet that game. I always take the points in situations like that. Okay, let's get to the Monday night game. Monday night is always exciting. It's a nationally televised game. The Jets are at home, and they're underdog by 2.5. Usually the rule of thumb is when you get a big main quarterback that you think is at the end of his career, the line's inflated, gives the wise guy an advantage. I don't believe that is the case here. I think Aaron Rodgers is far from being over the hill. He's home team underdog is something I like. The Jets had a phenomenal defense. They're still ranked. I think they're in the top 5. Their offensive line, remember, the game is won in that 11 inches of football. Offense, defense. I believe that the Jets have the edge in this game. Josh Allen is great. The Buffalo Bills are great. This is a division game. It's important to both teams, especially to Aaron Rodgers. He will play this game not as a tune-up game because this is important for home field advantage and to get to the playoffs. The more team wins you have in your division, the better it is for playoff prospects. Out of all the games I see, I like Aaron Rodgers as a home team underdog. I believe, and what I've always believed, I like to get all 3 of the variables where I think the offense, the defense, and special teams will overcome. But usually, if you win offense and defense, or offense and special teams, or defense and special teams, you only need 2 of the 3 of that combinations to win the game. But then we got to consider the line. Out of all the picks that I've figured, if I had to, but I wouldn't, it doesn't hit all of my variables. I like all of them to be in sync before I put my money up, but you are depending on me to teach you. So home team underdog, Aaron Rodgers, dominating defense. I think Aaron Rodgers needs no introduction. He is one of his greatest talents is he can analyze almost as good as Peyton Manning did the defenses, but he has the dexterity of a lizard when he's on that field. I've seen him do some amazing things, run right, throw left, give his receivers time by scrambling. He can wreak havoc on a defensive schematic. So be that as I say, I'm looking good to move to the Monday night game, the most out of all these games. Aaron Rodgers has been and always has been one of the peoples that have dictated the lines for bookmakers to set the line. The Jets have always been big underdogs. Historically, they play division games very, very tough. I like if I was going to have to make a bet, and I chose to, out of all the games we decided, I like the Jets. And not because they're a New York team, they're really a New Jersey team, but makes no difference. They hit more of my variables, home team underdog, a quarterback that can play hurt, a quarterback that plays smart, a defensive and offensive line that can win it in the trenches. And I think special teams will be a variable there. But I'm giving them the edge on the defensive line, and any more can hold their own on the offensive line, and as a quarterback and receivers that will respond to him. That's it for taking action this week. Remember, this is a platform show. Right now, I have not given you my picks, just my opinions and enough information so you can be. I'm going to do the same thing I do with my kids. If I did my job when I'm no longer here, they will say, thank you for the tools you gave me to succeed, or they will curse me out and give them the tools. I don't think you as a bettor in a world that is now legitimate need people to follow, but I think you need to think and be able to develop your own insights on how to handicap, because you are the captain of your own ship, and it will go where you lead it. I can't teach you self-control. I can only tell you what I do and how to be successful and have longevity. And the variables I give you are consistent. And right now, the lines are not tight. There are not flaws in it. There's just no premise to have them. So right now, the advantage is it's gambling now. It's not handicapping. If I was going to gamble, I gamble on Aaron Rodgers this week because of some of the variables there were. Is it a lock? No. Is it a game that I would put the ranch on or I would make as one of my bets? I sit back, evaluate the first 3 weeks. It's not what you want to hear. You're going to bet. I know you are. So I'm going to tell you where the smarter money would go. Thank you for taking action. I'd like to thank Joe Gambino. Always remember, hit subscribe. Always remember to give me your comments, especially the way I handicap and the things I would like to explain to you and for you. I am here to help you. Thank you.